to listen to the recording for this one because it's pretty late in Europe. But let's get started. Thanks everyone for joining. Very excited to have another meeting at the formal demography working group, even though it's been a while. Sorry, I'm not that good at multitasking and things, but I'm excited that we're back and we're meeting, and we've got Alex to talk to us today about some really exciting stuff. So just to introduce Alex, Alex Shen is a PhD student in demography at the Australian National University. His work covers a wide range of topics and includes studying social inequalities in health and sort of lots of formal methods to do with multi-state models and decomposition of population processes. He's got a really amazing publication record. Even though you're still a PhD student, I'm blown away. Alex has published in journals such as Demography, Demographic Research, Population Studies, Population, Place and Space. And so today, Alex will be talking to us about healthy life expectancy and related methods and decompositions. Thanks very much, Alex. Very excited to hear you talk. Take it away.
Well, thank you, Monica, for the introductions. Let me share my screen. Okay. See the right screen now?
Yep.
Good. Okay. So yeah, well, thanks for the introductions earlier. I'm Tianyu, Shen, and Alex. Oh yeah, everyone's call me by Alex. That's great. And I'm from Australian National University in Australia, in the very far place. That's why the European people have to listen to me in the middle of the night. So today I will talk a little bit about a healthy life expectancy and also its decompositions. See, why is it not moving? Okay, it's moving. So this is a little bit of the structure of today's talk. First of all, I will give let me just hide this things. Okay. First of all, I will give an overview of the multi-state life table, and then I will talk about the decompositions, and then a little bit of applications of these decompositions. Okay, good. So just a little bit of background why I'm talking about this decomposition. So decompositions of this chain of gap in life expectancy is a very popular kind of topic in demography. And I remember the very first talk in this kind of formal demography working group was about decompositions by Tim. And then multi-state life table is kind of a method that widely used nowadays to calculate healthy life expectancy. So it's the Sullivan methods that being used for the past decades. But there is a decompositions available for the Sullivan methods, but previously there was no analytical method to decompose the components of the healthy life expectancy calculated from multi-state life table. So that's why I just started to think, well, maybe we should have one for this multi-state life table. So before I go to multi-state, I'm just showing you a very nice life table that almost every demographer love, I guess. And this is what I kind of got into this world of this field of demographer. But first of all, I just want to look at this life expectancy. What is this life expectancy is defined in this in the life table. The life expectancy at age X is pretty much defined as in the person years live above this age X divided by the number of people left alive at age X. So we can extend this a little bit to a temporary life expectancy or what you call a partial life expectancy between age alpha and beta. So it's used a very similar concept. It's just this temporary life expectancy will be equal to the person year live between age alpha and beta divided by the number of people alive at age alpha. And then this capital LX is just, if we use a linear assumptions, you would just be half of the LX and half of the LX plus 1. And if we trace all the way back to what is this Lx? Then this Lx is just a product of the Lx minus one and Px minus one. That's we all know. And then the L alpha is just in a rate excess of one, or we can understand this as in the 100% of the population when we start calculating the life expectancy. But that was just a single decrement life table that when we extend it to multi-state, it just become a multi-decrement or a multi-increment and decrement life table. So I kind of list out the elements that I show in the previous slide on the left-hand side, which is from the single decrements, you see the life expectancy and the capital Lx and all the Lx's. And then on the right-hand side is multi-state life table elements. And you see a kind of perfect symmetry between these two sides. But there's only one difference is that the variables now or the functions are capitalized or bold, not capitalized, it's bold. So it means that they are matrix now instead of the single values, but they almost look the same. And then if we go up or go down again as well, and then you will see this bold survival matrix will be equal of Hx will be equal to the survival matrix as f minus one times the probability matrix as x minus one as well. And then we also need to have the initials survivors at H alpha to calculate this survival matrix Lx. And this initials will look like this, that in different state, there's proportion of people starting from a different state. And all this proportion of people should add up to the overall survivor, which is the L alpha here. And we just define that, set that as 100% of the population. So basically all this different proportion of people in different state will add up to the 100% of survivor at the beginning of the age range that we are interested in for the temporary life expectancy. So if we substitute all this equation backwards from the bottom to the top, you will pretty much get these equations here, like a discrete way to express the life expectancies. And so you can see it's basically a function of Lx's. So what is this Lx's, right? As I already talked a little bit about it, it's the Lx's is the products of Lx minus one and products of Lx minus one and the Px minus one. But it is, you will see the functions Lx is here again, so it's a recursive functions. So if you expand it, and then you will get this form. So you will get basically an L alpha and then a product of all the P's. So the L alpha is basically the survival matrix at the radix H alpha, and then P's are just all this transition probability at each of the H that until Hx that you are looking at this Lx. So this is a very typical kind of product terms in decompositions. And then here I'll just quickly show you the structures that L alpha I just show you. And then the Px is just all the transition probability between state one and to n, and then probably n to n, or of the possibility between different states. And if we take the derivative of this Lx's, you can basically get two additive terms using the chain rules. Basically, if we do some sort of calculations and also rearrangement, you will be able to get these two terms, as I mentioned, that two additive terms. So the first left-hand side is the effect from the initial population structure or the initial health structure or whatever multi-state structure that you have for the populations. And then the right-hand side will be the effect from the transition matrix at each of the ages. I sum them all up here, but you can actually look at each of the ages if you just expand it out. But then what does it mean by the effect from transition matrix? It seems like this P actually involve a lot of different P's. And then before that, if we go back to the ideas of the single decrements life table, Arriaga kind of showed that the change in survival at a certain age would have an effect on that age, and also the carry forward or the indirect effect on the number of survivors in later age. So in the multi-state world, we would also see this direct and indirect effect, but it will be a little bit more complicated. So in here, I'm just kind of showing you that this effect from the transition probability matrix at each age can be further decomposed, because you see that in this transition matrix P, there are so many little P's, and each of them can has some sort of change, and each of the change will have effect on this total life expectancy. And why was I talking about the Arriaga the indirect and direct effect? It was because the change in one of these probabilities inside, like P inside here, would have an effect on that age, and also a carry on effect, or the indirect effect, on the number of survivors at all state in the later ages. In other words, like for instance, the change in the P11 would have an effect on the life expectancy in state N, and you might still be a bit unclear about what I'm talking about, but I will go through an example to illustrate this better. So this example, I kind of calculate the remaining life expectancy by the disability status at age 55. So and then I try to decompose by sex, and then I try to decompose this gender gap or sex gap in the remaining life expectancy by this disability status. And you can see this is a very typical three-state model, that you have disability, free, and disabled, and then they can go back and forth. And then you'll see there's an absorbing state, that's death, and both of them can go to death. So first of all, we have to calculate the life expectancy to decompose it. So I'm just kind of show you the results here for women and men. For the women, at 23 years of disability-free life expectancy, and 5 of 6 years of disabled life expectancy. And for men, is a little bit less, 22 years, 0.5 years, and then 4.2 years of disabled life expectancies. So we're not decomposing the life expectancy directly, but we're decomposing the gap between these two life expectancy. So the gap is basically using the women's against men, so it's a positive gap, that women have an advantage in disability-free life expectancy, and also have an 1.67 years of advantage in the disabled life expectancy. Now, as I mentioned, you can decompose this gap into two components. The first component is the L alpha, which is the initial population structures of disability-free and disabled at age 55. And you can see the values are very tiny, which means that they're not really contributing too much to the sex gap. And the second term is the transition probabilities between from 55 all the way to the end, which is I took 105 here. So this is all the transitions that are after 55 are having effect on the sex gap, which is probably majority of the effect is coming from these transitions, which makes sense. It's a very long age range from 55 all the way to 100 something. But then what does it mean? Like, because it's all the way from 55 to 100 something, so it's quite a lot of P's involved. And what does this P look like? We can have a look at their age patterns, actually. So the transition matrix as a whole, contributing to the sex gap in the disability-free life expectancy at a younger ages, and then contributing to the disabled life expectancy at the older ages. So basically, a woman are surviving a bit longer for disabled life expectancy because of this transition probability at older ages seems to be keeping this woman in this disabled life expectancy, disabled state. But you might ask like, why we see these patterns and which transition probability is working behind this kind of shapes. And then now in this slide, I just show you we disaggregate a transition matrix into each of the probabilities. So the first row here, it will add up to, from these 4 different transition probabilities, will add up to this 1.46, and then the second rows here will add up to this 1.65. And most of these differences in the probability would actually widen the sex gap because they're all positive. They're all contributing to this big widening the sex gap. Only the recovery is negative here, which means it can narrow the sex gap, but the contribution is relatively small compared to many of the others ones. And then, sorry, I kind of skipped one thing, which is these things. So staying disability actually have quite a large contributions to the sex gap in disability-free life expectancy, which is like 0.69. This might be a bit intriguing if you remember the direct and indirect effect we talked about earlier. Then that's the explanations. So staying disabled in a certain age means there are chances to recover from it in later age. However, we can look into the age patterns to see whether this is true in that age patterns. So this slide, I first of all focus on this kind of each of these transition probability. How do they contribute to the disability-free life expectancy? So the purple lines here, or the staying disabled, the PDD, these purple lines, will contribute to higher disability-free life expectancy for women at younger ages. And then the effect from this probability would decline over ages. After 75, basically you will see that after 75 here, the DFDF, which is staying able, would actually be the biggest contributor to the disability-free life expectancy. This is kind of in line with what we talked about in the last line about people are being so this why we see people are staying more disabled. Why this staying disabled can contribute to disability-free life expectancy. And then if we turn to disabled life expectancy, you will see a very different patterns. So staying disabled here will contribute to, will have a very big contribution to the differences to the sex gap in the disabled life expectancy at a relatively older ages. And which means actually women staying disabled are the main reasons at older ages are the main reason why they see the advantage in this disabled life expectancy compared to men's. And then also this disability-free life expectancy has the contribution to this DFDF has contribution to the disabled life expectancy. It's a similarly it's an indirect effect. Although this effect is not very big, but it's quite stable across ages. So this is a very simple example, but if we think a little bit further, so when we have changing life expectancy, and we like to decompose this changing life expectancy by different subpopulation groups, and now we can also measure the change in healthy life expectancy. So can we do something similar for decomposing the changing life expectancy by different subpopulation group? So why do we want to know about this? First of all, the changing life expectancy is a mixed story. Some studies say that it's compressions and disability over time, and then others say that it's expansions or stagnations. So it really depends on the age and the time of the study, and also the cohort or period that they measure. But on the other hand, the educational disparity within the populations seems to be widening, especially in the US context. And then both population and educational level analysis are quite important and useful perspective. So this study kind of tried to bridge this two level of analysis together. And to answer these questions and how have the change in the educational compositions and the change in the health status within different educational group have led to the cohort patterns in the healthy life expectancy, aka the ADL disability life expectancy in the US older populations. So this is really a preliminary work on the decompositions with the educational groups that we are working on. I understand we all love equation here, but this part I probably just want to focus on the intuitions and the story behind instead of the math here. Here's a diagram for the idea. First, we observe the differences in the healthy life expectancy in the whole populations. But there are many different subpopulations that are contributing to these overall differences. Like in this diagram, we see there are three groups, low, middle, high, for instance. If we want to decompose the national differences with this group, we will have, first of all, the effect from the proportions, the change in proportion of each of the educational groups, how do they change? And then also the effect from each of these educational groups. But well, this structures looks, this kind of three-state inside structures looks very similar, right? Yes, and that's basically two components. The first component, you can decompose it into cumulative health at younger ages, which is basically the initial health structures. If you understand that initial health structures, cumulative results from all these previous ages. And then the second component will be the health transitions at the older ages or between the age range that you're calculating of that temporary life expectancy. So the data we use are, again, from the kind of the HIS. It's the longitudinal data. We use that data we use away from 2000 to 2020. And then we split this observation into two 10-year periods so that we can compare the cohort and age group in this between these two 10-year periods. We have three age group here, 60 to 69 and 70 to 79, and then 80 to 89. So we compare these two cohorts of the same age range, which is basically like 60 to 69, and this we're comparing the birth cohort from 1936 45 against the birth cohort from 1946 to 55. And then again, we're using ADL disability as a measurements of this health, and then 4 different educational groups below high school, graduate, and then the third group is some college, and then also bachelor and above. So here, you can see the life expectancy of these two cohorts for male and females separately. The gray bars is the earlier cohort, the white bar is the later cohort, and 10 years is the maximum's life expectancy we can calculate between 60 to 69 because it's only 10 years. And we are calculating this gray bars against the white bars. So basically comparing this gap between the change between this gray bar to white bar from the earlier cohort to later cohorts. So to be more straightforward, I just going to highlight this change. So this is basically the gray bar and the white bar that you see in the previous slide by each of the age range for male and females again. So you can see that the total life expectancy in the first row here, they are pretty much all increasing. And then for males, this increase are mostly coming from, could be coming from the disabled life expectancy, which is the DLE. For female, this increase might be coming from the disability free life expectancy, even though this DLE is not really decreasing significantly. So most of them will come from the increase of disability free life expectancy. So if we just zoom in to one of these age range for males to go through the decompositions, and for instance, the first things you will see that the males have a change in total life expectancy is 0.17 years, and there's no change in disability-free life expectancy for this age range for male. And then also there's a 0.17 years of increase in disabled life expectancy. Oops, what's happening? Okay. And here is the results for the males ages 60 to 69. The change in life expectancy are decomposed into 4 different educational groups and into 3 components. Basically, each of the components will have 4 education groups you see in these blue bars. So as I mentioned, that these blue bars are different educational groups, and all these blue bars in one of the life expectancy for these 3 components will add up to this black bar on top, which is the overall change in total life expectancy. And if we look at the patterns inside one of these components, first of all, is the educational compositions. You can see that the population is becoming more educated. As the educated group grow, they will contribute to more population level life expectancy and health expectancy. So it's all positive here. Basically, that's an exposure kind of effect that more people are in this higher educated group over time, so it will have higher exposures. And then if we look at its cumulative health structures, cumulative health at younger ages or before the age range, you see that differences in the cumulative health contribute really slightly to the change, and very, very little change from the bachelor and above group. They can barely see them. And then there are some positive contribution to disable life expectancy from the lower educated group. And the last component is the health transitions at older ages. You somehow will see that the contribution from these groups have a little bit of an education gradient in the total life expectancy. So the change in the total life expectancy for the bachelor groups are the highest, and then the lowest is the least educated group. But then if you look at different life expectancies, different disability state, you see that the bachelor and above groups actually contribute to positive disability for free life expectancy, but then the gain of total life expectancy for the lower educated group are mostly coming from the increase in the disabled life expectancy. But again, if we add up this effect from each of the groups here, in this case, I'm showing you the educational group, we get the effect from this component of controlling for the different educational groups. For example, the red bars here will be the sum of the blue bars, representing the contribution from the change in educational groups to the overall change in life expectancy. So if you sum up all these red bars from different components, you will get the overall components, which is the overall change in the total life expectancy. So again, if we go through each of these components here slowly, the educational compositions are contributing to most of the positive change in disability-free life expectancy, and also the positive change in the total life expectancy. And you will see there's a little bit of compressions in the disabled life expectancy due to the overall educational composition shift. As for the cumulative health at the younger ages, it seems to have somehow a negative contributions for disability-free life expectancy, at least for the males at this age range. And then also it contributes positively to the disabled life expectancy. And the last components is basically the contributions from the transition probability. It seems to have the transition probabilities at the older ages may actually contribute to a positive disability life expectancy, at least for this age range again. But do we see the similar patterns for other age range or females? Now this is kind of an overview of all the different age range, and then you can see that for the educational shift, they are generally will consistently contribute to an increase in disability-free life expectancy, and overall they will decrease this disabled life expectancy. However, for the cumulative health and the transition probabilities, there could be a variation between cohorts, but seems like the cumulative health are contributing to positive disable life expectancy, and then as well as the health transitions at the older ages. This is at least for males. So if we move on to what the females look like, you can see a very similar educational compositions that are consistently increasing the disability-free life expectancy and also compressing the disabled life expectancy. Yet the change in the cumulative health or the health transitions are having quite little kind of contributions on the female's total life expectancy, except the very older age groups. Other than that, they are almost flat. It doesn't really contribute too much to the overall change. So the conclusion here is that the total life expectancy generally increase over cohort. However, the disabled life expectancy has remained relatively stable, similar to other studies that might have looked into this in the recent cohort for the US, for the US. So there's really little compressions of disability. But I try to kind of show you that the change in educational attainment across cohort are major factors contributing to the compressions of disabled life expectancy, as we show in the previous slides. So why we don't see a compression in the overall change in the disabled life expectancy? That's because the widening kind of health disparity over the cohort between different educational groups have attuned this kind of potential positive change in the population health from the increasing educational attainment. So this educational shift is kind of very important to the population health improvement. And in fact, in the US, if not the change in the education, we probably not going to see any improvement, but even likely to see some of the deteriorations because of the change in the cumulative health or the change in the health transitions at older ages. Anyway, this is basically a work in progress. So any comments, welcome. Before I conclude, finish these presentations, I would just like to have final remarks that so this kind of decomposition methods allow us to compare the healthy life expectancy or any other durational life expectancy you might have between two populations or one population across time, and then understand what is the main components that are driving these kind of gaps or the differences you see. So a little bit of acknowledgement, although I'm the one that presenting, but this people's team, Vladimir, Colin, and Alison are somehow also behind some of the ideas that I'm presenting. So that's it, the presentation, and this is my emails, and thank you.
Thanks very much, Alex.
Yeah.
That was great. Very interesting. Lots of differences to wrap my head around. Differences and differences, but very interesting and really neat application. It was great to see those results, even if they're sort of preliminary. Have we got questions from the audience? Anyone? Just feel free to raise your hand if you do. Got one clap from Sarah, thank you. Any questions? Jose Manuel.
Yeah, well, I hate this silence, so I feel the need to ask something.
Appreciate it.
Hi, Alex. Thank you so much for this. And congratulations on all your work. I've been following your publications. It's been interesting. I have, I guess, maybe one question is more just to be clear what you were showing, I guess, in the sex difference example. So in disability-free life expectancy, there's like an advantage for females, but in disabled life expectancy is the other way around. So when you were showing the contributions of the transitions, it wasn't clear to me whether some of them were referring to advantage of females or advantage of males. So it would be good maybe to to interpret the graphs in this sense. What does it mean that they're positive contributions? Does that mean that in some of the transition states, females are performing better than males, or the other way around? So that would be my first question, and then I'll do the other two, and then you can choose whether you want to answer them. My second question is on the second example that you show. I mean, you have these compositional contributions that offset each other, right? Like you have that lower educated people are contributing in negative way to disability-free life expectancy or total life expectancy, and then the more educated people are contributing positively. And I think that would be worth studying how much of it is because of selection, no? Because people from different cohorts are going through these education transitions. So I think there's a selection effect, no? Like there's people that are transitioning to a higher, let's say, education status are potentially healthier. So then those that are left behind in the lower educated status are probably with worse health. So that's why maybe you see these opposing effects. So I was wondering, maybe in the future, when this kind of stabilizes, then maybe everyone will be, there will be always an advantage, I guess, for more educated people when you compare cohorts. And my last question is about the method itself, I guess. So one of the limitations of the Sullivan method, and I think also of yours, but I'm not sure how you deal with this, is that you rely in one like master survival function, in one big LX, and then you decompose this into two, into disability-free life expectancy and and the other one, and if you add them up, you get the total life expectancy, correct? So how is there a way to deal with your multi-state framework to mitigate the effect that people that have disability probably have a different survival function than those that have that don't have a limitation? Now that's what I would expect, but maybe in some way when you calculate the transitions, you can account partly for this. So yeah, sorry, many questions.
Okay. Thank you also, Laura. I mean, I kind of get to know you a lot from Wen, but I never met you in person, I guess. Okay, so I'll probably try to answer the questions. The first one first. I'm not sure I understand completely about the first one. So yes, I did show you kind of, I think maybe you are referring to this one, I guess. Yeah, I did show that the females, or maybe not this one, maybe this one, the female have some of the advantage in both disability-free and disabled life expectancy. So, and also, if you want to kind of know which exact probability having the most effect on why is seeing this, you can decompose it. Sorry, I can't kind of completely not very sure what I'm talking about because I didn't get.
No. Well, so if you go to the line plot.
Okay. Yes.
With the by colors.
Is it this one?
Yeah, exactly. So here, just very simple. Do positive values mean advantage for females
Yes.
or disadvantage?
Yeah, it's mean advantage for females. So it's widening the sex gap. So female have more higher values, basically. Positive means advantage and negative means disadvantage for females. Yeah. And
so higher values of disability or yes, or are they doing better or worse? How do we interpret the positive values here?
Oh, so the positive value basically means that this staying, for instance, this one, the 0.69, the staying disabled, the differences between the probability of staying disabled for men and women have contributing to a 0.69 years of higher disability-free life expectancy for female compared to the males. So that they have 0.69 year more disability-free life expectancy compared to male because coming from these components.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's what I wanted to know. Sorry, I might have missed your explanation, but I was just not sure about it.
Okay, good. Okay, so the second question is about the selections, which is which is a very important question that we always discuss about. And you're completely right, because now we are seeing this education expansions. Like for instance, probably in here, you will see that, yeah, it has been changing. And then what the reason you say, because of this expansion, there's some selection. So you will see the cumulative health at younger ages will kind of decrease, because only the lower, the least educated would be left in the lower educated group. Well, yes. So I think that's probably true as well, but that's first of all, it's probably not the focus of these studies. So I'm trying to show basically how these different levels are contributing to the overall life expectancy. And also, these selections are indeed happens, but still, you will see some of the higher educated groups also contributing to some slightly negative disability-free life expectancy, even though they are already selected into those groups. You would imagine they kind of have higher disability-free life expectancy, but not necessarily. And also, you mentioned, what if in the future there is no more education expansions, and then we might not see this kind of opposing patterns? That could be, or may not be. And because we kind of still see education is still expanding over time, it just depends on how you want to categorize the educations. Maybe in the future, it's not the high educated group will not be bachelor degree, it might become postgraduate, like that. And there's always a disparities because of this kind of differences in educations in the expectation of society. So that this kind of expansion, will they be ending soon? Maybe. And then also after they end, will this opposing effect kind of patterns gone? Maybe that's true as well. But then still, there's another thing, is that after, if there is no more expansions, and if there is no more change in these different components, would that mean there's stagnations in the disparity as well? Which means there's no more, the disparity is not going to close themselves. It's just going to stay that way. So we still need to see some sort of increase from these different lower educated groups, so that they can have closing this kind of disparities. I guess that's my understanding so far. I'm not sure you agree, but anyway, I can move on to the third one. Sorry, remind me, the third one is about the overall, I think it's about the death. Is it the survival in, let me see. I think it was the survival for, oops, sorry, let me just go to the page. Maybe it's the survival in this, for the different, for the disability free and the disabled. So the survival will not be the same in this case, because for the Sullivan methods, the survival for disability free and disabled people are going to be the same. But then in the multi-stage framework, the survival will not be the same. And also, probably, how did I control for that? It is in here. So if we look at this disability free to disability free, and then disability free to disabled, the change in these two already kind of imply the change in disability free to death. So if you have control for these two, somehow you already know the informations for that. So I'm not sure that's kind of convincing, but think about it. Why I did not, so in here, the reason why I did not show, there's actually a third life expectancy, that is the death expectancy, or you can understand it as a year of life loss. But then I'm not showing that there, because it's not very interested to know how long the people spend dead. So the transition probability from DF to dead will contribute to that specific life expectancy, which is actually the complement of these two. So the change in the disability-free life expectancy plus the change in disabled life expectancy will be the change in the overall total life, will be the change in total life expectancy. And then that will also be the change in the life span in death. but that's not a very valuable concept. So it's not shown here. I hope I somehow answer that questions.
Yes, thank
yeah.
you. Thank you, Alex. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Thanks for the questions. Does anyone else have any questions for Alex? I have a question, but it's I guess maybe a little bit off track, but motivated, it's just for selfish reasons, because I was trying to play around with these multi-state methods for things that don't have very good data. And so I'm just curious to get your thoughts about, you know, what could we potentially do to try and still use these multi-state methods when we don't have very good data on the transition probabilities, for example? Do you have any thoughts on that? If you get, like, good luck.
Yeah, well, I'm using like a longitudinal data that is very well used in the US, and they have good track records of all the data over time. And I have to say, it's very difficult to use very poor data. You either have to somehow use estimations, which use the model, and that could help you to build the one that in between that you're missing, but that's also rely on a lot of assumptions. So whenever you have poor data, then you have to have some assumptions. That's just a trade-off, which is not bad things, but just whether it's convincing, I guess. As for is there another way? I kind of recently reading a paper from Michel Gros, and then they were somehow using some of cross-sectional data to try to simulate the way that using as a multi-state framework, even those cross-sectional in a few years. But I guess it could be something that was looking into. But
cool, thank you. Yeah, no, just for context, we were trying to use these sorts of methods to look at not life expectancy, but like expected life lived without parents. And so there's a little bit of survey data about what age people lose their parents, but not much. And as soon as you start breaking it down by subgroup, it gets pretty noisy. And then the other issue is, I think, related maybe to what Jose Manuel mentioned at some point, but the big assumption is we have to assume that everyone has like the population level mortality rate. So people who lose their parents early have the same survival probabilities as people who don't, which I guess is a big assumption. So there are all these holes, and I was like, oh, I don't know what to do. So, but anyway, I think these methods are really cool, and the decomposition is another dimension as well. Any other questions, comments for Alex? No. Okay. If we don't have any
More than a question, I just want to. Sorry, this is Vladimir. More than a question, I want to say, I'm in the bush, so that's why it's a little bit bad, the reception. But more than a question, I just want to say that Alex is finishing this year his PhD, so he will be in the market this year. So please pay attention. If you see anything where you can see that they need a person like him, that will be a great opportunity. Thank you.
Love it.
Thanks, Vladimir.
Yeah,
Love it. It's on the record too.
And everything to him.
It's on the
Yeah,
record.
Come to England. Come to England.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about it. How I can come to England for the mobile.
Well, I might have a suggestion on the sex difference thing. So one of the criticisms that I get sometimes when using these continuous based decompositions is that sex is not continuous. right? It's a discrete variable. So in terms of of how you apply the method, it's the same, but maybe when you frame the paper, you want to frame it as a discrete variable and not as a continuous variable. Because sometimes I mean, I know that the implementation is the same, but the theoretical backbone kind of like makes sense to be discrete. What's up,
Yeah.
Vladimir? Are you saying bye or?
Well, I just want to say that School of Demography at ANU sits next to sociology, and over there is a very big group working on the fluid genders. You know, there is no clear definition of where male and female stands anymore in other fields, and I think it pays out for demographers to start looking at this other new dimension that we have that is not just dichotomous.
I agree, but then this paper was about sex and not gender.
Yes, yes, I understand that it's looking at a discrete variable while the derivative usually use it for a continuous variable. But yeah, I kind of would phrase it a bit more carefully next time. But in the paper, I kind of did mention that it was more of a discrete variables. Yeah, thanks though.
Vanessa, have you unmuted yourself because you wanted to say something, or?
Yeah, no, I was just also on this the gender gap thing, but I was just curious because I always had this idea of doing something about exactly what you said. It doesn't seem relevant, so I was just wondering, no, about the death expectancy. It's because I'm gonna say why. Just I always wondered if that would be a way to kind of like understand the impact of male mortality, because the thing is when you're decomposing this gap and then you showed like, for example, the role of recovery is negative. So the disabled life years for women is always higher. The contribution is always higher for women because they stay disabled for longer years but they also live longer. And then I always felt like sometimes we were capturing with the recovery, like a higher relative recovery for men was actually also them dropping out due to death. So, but you can't, like, it's hard to disentangle that. And then if somehow, I know it sounds crazy, but I always felt like if we could compare the death expectancy of men and women, like how many years you expect them to spend dead, you like almost like keeping them in the model. And yeah, anyway, if that would be kind of like help to understand this. I'm saying this because all this discussion of like it's because women live longer than they spent more years in disabled life is not really it kind of gives this idea that should men live as long as women, then they would also expect to spend this amount of years in a disabled condition, right? And then it would kind of like be a kind of a simulation thing that if we try to compare this. But anyway, it's just a crazy thought. And if
Yeah, sounds very interesting. I have to think about what we can do about it. But yeah, sounds like an interesting thoughts.
anyway, but thanks, it was really cool presentation. Thanks a lot.
Right. Okay, unless anyone else has anything, I'm gonna say that I will be at PAA. Vanessa won't be, and I don't know about Rio, but I will be walking around with these.
You will be with the stickers.
So come and find me if you would like one of those. Yeah. Sarah, I'll give you some stickers to hand out. Our propaganda. Yeah, so I'll be around. There's 2, I think, sessions on formal demographic methods. There's sort of a regular session, and then there's a flash session on like innovative demographic methods and formal demography. So I'll probably run into people there if you're going. Otherwise, just thanks very much, Alex, for a great presentation. Really enjoyed it. Thanks everyone for coming.
Yep.
And yeah, catch up with all of you soon, hopefully.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, it's great.
Vla-
Okay.
Vla- Vladimir is showing that I have to run is not a good excuse to leave.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Actually running.
He's actually running with a dog. Great.
Yeah.
All right.
So
See you
that's-
guys.
Healthy life expectancy.
That's
So,
the
yeah.
extreme level of
Okay.
multitasking. Okay.
Okay, see you in PA, Monica, and see you next time, Vanessa. Bye.
Okay.
And
Bye.
also more